1-2. Swinging a drive toward right center. Back goes Robert. Back near the stands. That ball is gone. A game-winning home run for Chris Morel. Can you believe it? Listen to this crowd.
Welcome back to the Brotherly Cubs podcast. I'm your little brother, Zach, and that is my big brother, John. We're your brothers who love everything Cubs baseball. If you enjoy Chicago, Illinois, professional, major league baseball, then hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and join us every week as we dive into your offseason champion, Chicago Cubs.
We like to start off each podcast with a playful question for all 111 of our subscribers. Thank you to I think we gained four extra subscribers from last week, so thank you. Before we get to that playful question, we just like to shout out to all of you who listen to us whenever we post. Thank you for checking us out. While we talk everything Cubs baseball, like Zach said, we are the off-season champions so far. I don't know what that really means, but today, Zach, our playful question we have is: which Cubs player, former or current, would you want as a guest sitting at your Thanksgiving dinner? Also, what is your favorite Thanksgiving dish?
So first question, I'm going to go with either Paredes or Assad, just because I want to add potentially some Mexican food. Both of them are from Mexico. Add some tamales or any Mexican dishes would be a nice addition to what sometimes is a very bland Thanksgiving at times.
Yeah.
And then to answer my favorite dish, I don't know. None.
Golly, sir, I'm not ready for that.
There's too many. Stuffing is, I think, underrated.
Yeah,
we don't
I
eat
agree.
it very often. That's why I kind of like that, as it's a weird wild card type dish.
All right, I was thinking, well, that's a great answer for Assad or who was it that you said?
Isaac Paredes.
Oh yeah, Isaac Paredes. I would say I was just thinking. I wasn't even thinking about food, but I was thinking about seeing where Nick Madrigal's head's at after being let go from the Cubs, and just checking in. Doing a mental health check in with him, and just making sure he understands that he'll probably never play baseball again, and so.
I think
No,
he might.
He might latch on as like a backup
AAA.
roller. The AAA. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, no, I didn't really have I mean, PCA would have been a really good one too, I think. Just to kind of just talk baseball and just to kind of get to know PCA more. I think he's a cool dude. Favorite Thanksgiving dish. This reminds me of a friend of mine. She said that her least favorite dish is pumpkin pie. She won't eat it for
bad take.
Yeah. I don't know what the hell she's thinking.
Great counsel voice. That's a bad take, Jesse.
She loves carrot cake and pecan pie, but not pumpkin pie. And I like pumpkin pie in the right moment. At the right moment, I don't think you could have that maybe past Christmas.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, it just kind of, goes out of style. But I like the dark meat, so dark turkey meat with some mashed potatoes, personally. So I agree with your comment though that stuffing is underrated. I think stuffing is really great. You can combine it basically with almost anything. So
yeah, it's literally just bread, basically.
Yeah. And that's why you can combine it with everything. So some news around Chicago. I was going to say around the league, but really it's just Chicago. But the Cubs have non-tendered Patrick Wisdom, Nick Madrigal, as we mentioned, he's being let go, and Matt. I wrote Matt Tauchman in there as a joke, but I actually said it. Mike Tauchman, the Palatine Pounder, as we call him, or as a lot of people call him. So you say goodbye to those guys. Obviously, Mike Tauchman is that's a sad one. Your thoughts on that, real quick?
Yeah, I mean, with the non-tenders, I guess Tauchman is the most surprising one, but the other two, Wisdom and Madrigal, were not too surprising, I don't think, from a bench roll standpoint.
Yeah. I agree. Julian Merryweather, Matt Thaiss, and Keegan Thompson all avoided arbitration. Interesting about Matt Thaiss is that he's actually out of options. I didn't know that when they acquired him. So that's a interesting pickup there. The Cubs did tender a contract to Isaac Paredes, Justin Steele, Eli Morgan. Really curious about him and how he plays into the bullpen this year, and Nate Pearson. Your thoughts on any of those guys?
No, none.
Okay. Just keep it going. Cubs also signed, I thought this was interesting, Phil Bickford. I think he was from the Mets previously. I think he was with the Dodgers for a little bit, to a non-guaranteed minor league contract. So high, low risk, basically. I want to say high upside, but that could be a sneaky signing. I think it just, if anything, it just helps to build the bullpen depth a little bit. I just looked into his repertoire. So he has a fastball, generates a lot of fly balls, which may not be great depending on the weather.
Yeah.
So yeah, if the wind is not a factor, maybe call him up for a little while. He has a slider. He has a splitter as well. His splitter's pretty good. I was just watching some highlights of that. So any thoughts, Zach?
Yeah, so I will say, here's what I'll say. Bickford, I think he pitched with the Dodgers, and that's kind of encouraging when he pitched in the majors with a few teams.
Yeah.
Minor league deal, that's fine. You're always going to take some flyers on guys like Matt Thaiss or Phil Bickford, as long as you're not giving them major league contracts and guaranteeing them a 40-man roster spot. There's a few options out there for the bullpen from this non-tender deadline that just passed. Hence why we're discussing the Cubs at all, even though there's been no moves, no big moves. There was the Eli Morgan trade. I guess we may have talked about that the last time, or maybe not. But the Cubs giving up Alfonson Rosario for Eli Morgan. Rosario was like a high strikeout, power hitting outfielder at low and single A last year. So not like a terribly bad return. And then you get a reliever with 3 years of control who pitched for the Guardians and Carter Hawkins might have some familiarity with. So they get him, but there's also other bullpen moves out there right now. Hobie Milner, lefty from the Brewers, was non-tendered. Experience with Council. He's a lefty, funky arm angle. Doesn't throw fast, but he's got that familiarity. So I think the Cubs might take a look at him. Also, Jordan Romano.
I saw that. Yeah.
DFA'd by the Blue Jays. I don't know how serious his arm. He didn't have Tommy John, but he did have a
elbow impingement, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had an elbow surgery in July last year. So I mean, it's been 4 months. Depending on how the Blue Jays felt about his recovery, it's possible that he comes back maybe later than they'd like. But there's a couple of solid options out there for bullpen pickups, and also I think was it Kyle Finnegan?
Yeah.
Of the Nationals that also got DFA'd or non-tendered. I guess it's really the same thing.
I believe it's Carl Finnegan.
Carl. They had at some point I thought they had lefties that we were looking for, but it's all been righties that the Nats had at the trade deadline last year. Finnegan is sort of like a power pitcher he has a good splitter and just throws his fastball too much apparently, and so I guess if he tapers down his fastball usage, he could potentially be an option to add. There's a few options out there. I mean, these are not bad options depending on health and things like that, but that's my take, is that there's actually a bit of optimism. Tender guy, you tender the normal guys. Thaiss is maybe Thompson. Those are a little bit surprising. Thompson and Merryweather on the same roster at this point. One of them is eventually going to get DFA'd probably.
Yeah.
I think actually Matt Thaiss could get DFA'd.
He's the fourth option I was reading, possibly.
Well, that's a point of debate. I think at this point, I hope for the Cubs front office, you go for a 1A type catcher. Amaya is a solid backup, and then Theis is really just depth at AAA. I think I
Yeah.
read from Full Count Tommy on now we're on Blue Sky. Uh, the Twitter of the good.
Right.
Full Count Tommy, he was mentioning that he thinks it actually might be a split minor major league deal for Matt Theis, which is good news. So they're not depending on him to be like Amaya's backup. So I think they still are going to sign at least a starting catcher.
Yeah, I think they have to. I mean, his numbers weren't great, obviously. I think he was like 210 or something like that with like 10 home runs or something. I mean, it
Not even
was
10 home runs.
no,
Yeah.
I think I'm giving
Well,
him like an extra 5.
I think he had
Like,
a season in which he hit 10 home runs at some point, but I think his ceiling is like 10 homers and 40 RBIs. So
yeah, he had a nice little foul ball catch. Can't talk. So I mean, that was one play, but he's an interesting pickup, I think, in the offseason. I don't know. There was another catcher that they picked up last year that was just like, oh, okay. I mean, it was really random. I can't remember what his name was. Like Joe
Hudson,
Hudson. Yeah.
yeah,
I don't think he did he even play at all. I don't.
no, and that's I think Matt
This
Theis
is
is going to be a similar.
he's another
People
Joe
freak out
Hudson.
about this. If Matt Theis is your backup and Amaya's your starter, people have a reason to be pissed off about
Oh
this
yeah,
team.
for sure, for
That
sure.
is terrible. I don't think
We'll get
that's going to
into
happen.
those options too. I mean, there's some free agent catchers we'll talk about. So, but I first want to talk about Zach, the rumors out there surrounding Cody Bellinger. If the Cubs are going to trade him now that he opted into his contract, then they're like, we don't really want you. This is awkward. So what do
Yeah, yeah.
they, will the Cubs kick in an extra 7 or 8 million just to get him out of town? Who would you like to see them acquire in his place if they are able to trade him? What are your thoughts on
This
Cody Bellinger?
it's an interesting question right now with what the Cubs are doing.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, because he's going to make I think 27 million this year, I think they're going to have to kick in more than 7 or 8 mil. I think it's going to have to be a decent amount.
Yeah.
And I think in return they might just get prospects. It doesn't have
Right.
to be salary matching like the NBA. So I don't know if the return is what we're looking for. I think what we might be interested in is uh, what is the what who is the replacement in the batting order for him, or who's going to play right field.
Yeah.
Um, that's what we'll definitely talk about this episode. Is That's what I'm interested in. I'm wondering if they'll make a move first at the winter meetings, or if Juan Soto will sign first and then the Bellinger information will come out later.
Hmm.
The Cubs maybe should make the move to acquire a player and lock them down and then trade Bellinger because of redundancy, even though they might lose leverage. I would not trade him and then be like, oh crap, we lost out on all the players we were thinking we could get. And now you don't have a 3 hitter. So just to save money. That would be
I
a bad look.
It would be a very bad look, but it wouldn't surprise me. I think that's a great point. Honestly, I didn't think about that. If they could lock down somebody, that'd be ideal, right? I mean, that way, I mean, if you would have Belly and then possibly another slugger, and then like you said, I mean, well, for leverage purposes, right? I mean, if the Cubs are going in to the season with the legit slugger and Belly, they can trade him and still have still replace Belly, um, and still have that slugger in their back pocket. So I mean, I
The
think I think it benefits the Cubs to sign somebody right now, versus being desperate and trying to trade Belly for someone else. And then I think other teams are going to take advantage of him of them.
I think it depends on. I think the assumption is Hoerner will come back during the normal, during the start of the season. I won't miss that much time.
Yeah.
But I do think if you add a slugger and then you don't really plan to trade Bellinger right away, the issue then becomes getting at bats for everybody because Suzuki was going to be your DH. So then you would say, whoever this new addition is, what position are they going to play? Um, that might be the issue with that. The other thought to this is Bellinger can play center if PCA is down. He can play first if Busch is down. He can play left if Happ is down. So there's still a lot Bellinger can do for this team, even if they don't trade him right away. But yeah, the at bats are going to become an issue unless they want to move on from someone like Michael Busch, who would have trade value, but then they would be losing out on a cheap salary slot,
Right.
on their team. So
Exactly.
it's a really difficult puzzle right now. There's
It
no
is.
obvious answers right now.
And I think, and I have this in our notes here as well. They could package him, Belly, with like I mentioned, Hoerner, and possibly even another prospect. I mean, that's a lot. You'd be hopefully getting, you know, maybe a
That's like a
slugger back.
blockbuster trade.
That's a blockbuster trade. But I feel like if you're not going to kick in a ton of salary for the
Yeah.
Bellinger deal, maybe you have to do that in order to clear that salary. So I mean, it just if they wanted to get someone like Pete Alonso or something, and he's asking for what they call buku bucks.
Yeah, I think
You want to have that salary available for him. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if they do anything different from last year, and B, if they do something, is it to compete this year, or are they going to trade for prospects and just keep loading up the farm? So
right.
I'll be curious. I'll be really curious to see how it shakes out. But let's talk about some free agent hitters here. Last week was free agent pitchers, right? Areas of weakness we have, Zach, are the catcher, the third base spot, and first base. So what do you think about these options here for catcher first? So Carson Kelly or possibly Danny Jansen?
Yeah, I'm in full agreement. I think this is a sort of a narrow market, and they have to act quickly because they already lost out on Travis d'Arnaud to the
Right.
powerful, high-spending Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim
Right.
that don't want to win any baseball games. Lost out on Shohei Ohtani. When you lose out on Travis d'Arnaud, I'm not saying they need to get d'Arnaud, but this reminds me of when they went out and got Tucker Barnhart in an offseason, and they missed out on a couple other catchers that didn't really do well either, but Barnhart was a DFA during the year they signed him. And so the Cubs can't afford to miss out on Kelly or Jansen and settle for a nondescript, like another Matt Tice or something that ends up
Right.
being, at this point, Ballesteros is not, according to, Sharma and Mooney of the Athletic, inside sources with the clubhouse, the front office does not think that Ballesteros is ready to be even a backup catcher at this point. So he still needs room to learn how to catch at AAA, which makes me think he could be a trade candidate. And when it comes to that, that makes the catcher position, this is maybe even their number one priority.
Yeah, I
Even
agree.
though there's a lot more impactful positions to add at, such as a hitter or trade for starter or add a starter at the top. This is something that is a no-brainer type move, and if they don't make it, I would be very frustrated with this team, I would say.
I agree. I mean, 100%. I mean, Mo Baller, I was going to call him Moyes by Ballesteros, looking at his stats on baseballsavant.com, has him allowing base stealers last year to succeed in 97 of 122 attempts. So they stole 80% of the bases off
It's
of
a bad
him.
figure.
It's a bad figure. It's not a
For the
good
minor
look.
leagues.
He's a
Yeah.
little heavier, he's got a thicker lower half, as they say here on his scouting report. He lacks quickness and agility. His transfer, slow footwork and transfer, from glove to hands. I mean, he's got some good hitting tools, and I'm really curious. I mean, I really honestly think he can develop, at least into a solid backup. So it's, what is a good percentage, would you say, for cost stealing? Maybe 32?
In the 30s, yeah. If
So
you're in the 20s, you're the bottom part of the league, I thought. I think that's now, and if that's with AAA as well and AA, I mean, that's, you want that number to kind of be high from the get-go because you're going to probably
right.
have some
It'll
better
drop.
speed.
Yeah.
So that's the tough part for me with him. But
Yeah.
other than that, I mean, I'd like him. I think he would be a solid like bench bat for the team. If he can become a serviceable 1 or 2 day a week catcher. If he could do that, I mean, he's got a spot on the team, I think, for sure. So
Yeah. Kind of moving ahead here to I have third base. Third base is kind of a question mark a little bit with Misak Paredes. He had 9 errors in 53 games. Um,
I I saw that in the show notes. I want to push back. He's a league average defender over the last several years
okay.
at third. I think he just had. I'm not gonna lie. I think he was in his head during the trade deadline. He didn't. He played terribly at Wrigley. I mean, the
Yeah.
team did bad at Wrigley, but he had like a 300 OPS.
Yeah.
Small sample at Wrigley. That's not sustainable. I don't
Yeah.
expect him to uh, have a full season next year with the Cubs and have a 400 OPS at home. I mean, if that happens, he's going to get benched. Basically, he's going to become unplayable.
Right.
I think he had 3 errors in one game. So, and since he's a 0 on defensive WAR, which means he's not a strong defender,
Right.
but he's not a negative defender.
Right.
So his defensive abilities don't inhibit his WAR. It doesn't. A lot of players are strong hitters and they're bad defenders unless their WAR goes down.
Yeah.
Because of his ability to be a league average third baseman, he's league average there. So if you can replace him with a strong defensive third baseman and better track record, like Alex Bregman,
Yeah.
no indication the Cubs are going to give out like a $200 million deal to Bregman.
Yeah.
If they did, I would say, trade Paredes and get Bregman. But at this point, I do think it's in between a weakness and a strength. I think it's sort of a gray area.
Okay.
And that's because we need to see a larger sample with him at Wrigley. It's possible he has a league average OPS at Wrigley. We saw him have a very good road OPS last year, and again, smaller sample, but looked good. And other names here in the show notes, I don't think they'd be better. Gio Ursula or Rojas, I don't think they'd be better than Paredes.
No, I found them interesting. Josh Rojas was DF or not DFA or non-tendered or whatever. He had 225, so his defense was phenomenal though. It was Gold Glove caliber type of season. It's very few are great defensively and great offensively, right? Like maybe Matt Chapman, Nolan Arenado, but even then he's kind of fallen off.
Exactly.
Offensively, defense is still there. So Gio Ursula, again, great defensively. I think he's in the top 5 for defense, for fielding percentage. So that's why I have him in there. But yeah, offense, obviously you would be losing something there. So, I mean, I think third basemen are going to be hard to come by unless you maybe trade. But even then, I don't think they would really trade at this point. They just traded for Paredes, so
give up a lot for him too. I think they want to see the fruits of their labors a little bit.
Yeah, maybe give him a half a season and see how he does, at Wrigley, and if he's able to turn it around.
Yeah, for sure. Give him a little bit more time and just prove that. See a little bit more where he's at. He's got a full offseason with the Cubs,
right?
So I'll give him a little bit more time, I think.
First baseman, I have possible Anthony Rizzo reunion. I think that probably won't happen. There's obviously Pete Alonso, Christian Walker. They're free agents. They'll probably command quite a bit of money though. But that's if you're kind of moving some pieces around the right. I think Michael Busch kind of has first base pretty much locked down for the most part. Or what are your thoughts on that? Do you think he does not have that lockdown?
Ooh, this is a really good question. This will sort of be answered throughout the offseason, but I don't know if Busch has it locked down. I just think they think he has built value into himself as a player. If he could play second base, I mean, he would be a really awesome player in the middle of this lineup, batting 6th, playing second. He's got an average amount of speed, a left-handed bat. I don't think he's the first baseman of the future.
I agree.
But unfortunately, it's one of those things where if you gave him another year, then you could really evaluate how he is as a major leaguer.
Yeah.
If the Cubs can trade him and trade him with other pieces for a pitcher and then upgrade first base, Alonso and Walker. I haven't looked at Walker's stats closely. I don't know how old he is.
He is, yeah. He's up there. I think I want to say 34, 35.
That gives me a lot of pause. That's about
Right.
the age that
Well,
major leaguers start to kind of taper off.
right.
Whereas Pete Alonso is only 29 or 30, maybe 30 or 31.
Oh, no, he's 33. Christian
Okay.
Walker, yeah. So
I mean, I would give him a 2-year deal.
Yeah, because keep in mind, I mean, you still have Mo Baller, right? I mean, if he could play first base, right?
Yeah, you could.
I mean,
That's a really tough one. I mean, if you sign Walker to a short-term deal and then like almost platooned him with Ballesteros
yeah,
and gave Ballesteros a lot of opportunity at first, he still needs to kind of like learn to play first at
right,
AAA.
right.
But yeah, I mean, if Walker took a 2-year deal, I think he'd be an upgrade offensively over Busch. You could trade Busch. What
Yeah.
else could you do? Yeah, you could give Ballesteros some opportunity there. And so that's one one
Possibility.
possibility, one shot they could take.
Yeah,
Another one, obviously Pete Alonso, if his market falls a bit and he
Mhm.
takes less than like a 7 or 8 year deal, you
right.
can get like a 5-year deal worth 150. I think the Cubs would pounce on that.
I think you have to. Yeah,
If his market falls out and he doesn't get 200 mil, he gets a 5-year deal because he's already 30 years old. I
yeah.
would love for him to be the first baseman of the future.
Oh, yeah,
And then you trade Michael Busch,
yeah.
and Busch again is not like negative value, and he's cheap, so he could. A lot of teams would want him, such as the Seattle Mariners would probably want a guy like Michael Busch. They don't have a lot of money.
Right.
You could package Busch
Yeah.
with a few others, and you could go and get one of the many pitchers. Or other teams would probably want a guy like that if the Cubs would just shell out the money, and that inevitably. I guess you do all that, and if you hang on to Bellinger, he's going to play right field.
Yeah. If you could somehow do that, I mean, you could think about that. You got possibly Caissie in there, maybe Owen Caissie.
Here and there, yeah.
I was just trying to think of some sluggers. Alonso, Belly. I think he'll rebound. I actually think he'll do better this year.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't think he's going to be as bad as people think he is. I think he kind of just like waffles back and forth.
Injuries too, yeah.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting if they could really get Pete Alonso. I mean, or Christian Walker. I mean, we'll see. So just kind of going through the list here. If Belly is possibly replaced, who would fit in for right field? What do you think about Owen Caissie?
Oh, this is a tough one. If they trade Bellinger, oh man, the contingency plan or maybe what's plan A if you trade Bellinger? I don't know if you want to give 600 at bats to Owen Caissie.
Yeah, he's not really proven yet. I mean,
right, especially with a team that really wants to make the playoffs. I am a little nervous about who would come in and play right field. I would almost default to Suzuki, who is still. I mean, he does make a lot of bad plays in right, but he's not. He's got a
god
decent
awful.
arm.
Yeah, he's decent.
He's decent. I think he's probably close to league average. The bad plays definitely stand out for him.
Yeah,
and Caissie's got a good arm. He's not like PCA out there and right.
No.
So,
he's got some pop though.
I mean, how many home runs did he even have last year for AAA?
I'm not sure.
He's got really good skills. He improved bat to ball a little bit last year. He's got a lot of power, even hitting doubles. He hasn't had like a Mervis or Canario type year where he went out and hit 35 home runs. I think the Cubs are trying to mold him
22.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a guy who I would say, oh, he's got pop. That's going to drop in the major leagues. I think he's going to need time in the majors to develop the pop.
Yeah.
So if you can mix him into the outfield as a bench bat, it's a tough one, man. It's a tough one. And who would play right field? I'd love for Suzuki to just move in to play right and like Santander or Alonso to DH. And then maybe if you do that, then maybe you give Suzuki more time DHing in general, and you do sort of mix in Caissie, especially if there's an injury. Um, I think Caissie's a bubble player right now between the majors and
Yeah,
AAA.
I agree. I think you got to see more of a sample size, like you said. I mean, um, definitely curious to see like if you did give him a shot. I don't think, yeah, he wasn't called up at all last year,
Right, and
and
he was
many people were clamoring for him to, especially when
yeah,
we were out of it. It's like give him 10 games, or 8 to 10 games, just see what he can do. I mean, the pitching might not be amazing. I think they faced the Reds at the last part of the season there, but
yeah,
just to give him something would have been helpful, just to kind of see what you have in him.
yeah.
But what do you think? We're going to move on here a little bit to Matt Shaw. Matt Shaw is absolutely tearing it up. I saw about I think it was 2 weeks ago that his average was like 736 or something.
His
And the
slugging, yeah.
no, I think his average was
Oh wow,
yeah, no, it was. I want to say his average was like way up there. Maybe it wasn't 700
crazy.
something, but it was. Yeah, he's absolutely tearing the cover off the ball. He's been great defensively. Many people see him as a second baseman, not necessarily a third baseman. What say you, good sir, about Matt Shaw? Do you see him as a second baseman, like for next year?
What I'd like to see more is him at AAA playing third as well. I just want to see it. It looks like he's had some like highlight reel plays at third,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's kind of exciting. I want to see just constant repetition and getting the basics down over there. I
Yeah.
really want to see him do that, right? Just a quick update for I'm sure a lot of listeners know about Matt Shaw, but 21 home runs, 71 RBIs, and a Fangraphs doesn't do a good job of compiling stats. But he sat in the 800 OPS range, and he actually had a really good AAA, only 150 at bats in the 900 OPS range. So again, in only 150 at bats, I'd like to see him get. He actually may end up breaking camp with the Cubs because Nico Hoerner may not be ready by March 18th, which is
Mm-hmm.
fastly approaching. But they'll add him to the 40 man, I'm sure, and I think they'll probably give him another 100 or so at bats and maybe just mix him around. I think Shaw is going to end up being a utility infielder, and
Okay.
if there's injuries or maybe severe injuries, maybe it's deeper into the future, but I could see him playing like a little bit of outfield, like say left field. He's very athletic. He's got
Mm-hmm.
speed. There's been a lot of comps to Dustin Pedroia, who's like a borderline Hall of
Yeah.
Famer.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Just the leg kick and the second baseman, smaller guy from the Northeast. A lot of comps there, but I'm excited for him. A lot of his stats were in the Premier 12 tournament, playing for the Team USA, obviously against other foreign national teams. I don't know exactly how strong the pitching is in these leagues. It's not like the World Baseball
Ye-
Classic.
yeah.
So I'm a little hesitant to say, oh, he is tearing the cover off the ball, but
Right.
it could be just against like AA level pitching.
Yeah, that's true.
Still impressive though. I mean, it's
Yeah.
good to see him in the zone, and
Yeah.
that's going to do a lot for his confidence. And I think at this point, everyone is sort of penciling him in as a second baseman because Hoerner is not guaranteed to play next year the whole
Mm-hmm.
season, especially with the trade rumors. And I think he could fill in nicely for Paredes at third if he can play that position.
Yeah.
Because then if you had Shaw at third, let's say Paredes doesn't work out and Shaw can play third,
Yeah.
then you could either move Busch to second or you could keep Hoerner at second but upgrade over Busch at first. You could actually have a really solid offense if he can, kind of live up to what he's done in AAA.
Right.
Because the OPS numbers in a small sample, 900 OPS, is very impressive.
Yeah. He's got in the Premier 12 league. He's averages 412. Slugging is what 700 something, like
Crazy.
706.
Yeah.
Say OPS is 1206. So I
Right.
mean, he has like 24. He has 24 total bases. So
Yeah.
14 RBI, which leads the next guy would be Ryan Ward with 11. So I mean,
Right, he led the tournament, in RBIs.
yeah.
That's
So I mean,
really
he's
good.
just it's impressive, but like you said, you kind of want to. You don't know really how this isn't like the World Baseball Classic. It's the WBSC, whatever that is. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but moving on to shortstop. Obviously, we have Swanson. Third base. We'd have Isak Paredes, like we said. He's one to kind of watch for. Dansby Swanson at short. Left field, Ian Happ, who has, of course, a no trade clause. That was nice of him to secure that. And center field, PCA. Right field, possibly. We're not quite sure about that yet, but maybe Bellinger. They're not able to trade him, and then DH. Seiya Suzuki. And then catcher would be Miguel Amaya by default, pending free agent signings.
Danny Jansen, yeah, pencil him
Danny
in.
Jansen, there you go. Yeah. Any questions about that? Who you want to see go? Who do you think is going to go? Like being traded.
I think Hoerner is a prime trade candidate. I know we literally just talked about him in that sense, but he is a really good player. And although you'd miss out on the defense and the speed, you could probably make up with the speed with other players.
Right.
The defense would be tough to get rid of him in that sense, but Hoerner's offensive ceiling is about 9 to 11 home runs and 50 to 60 RBIs, 700 OPS. That's very replaceable.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to upgrade the team, he's the only spot that, because he has value, you could trade him to a team and they're not afraid to pay him the $10 million that he's owed. He's on a good contract.
Yeah.
So that helps the Cubs quite a bit in trade negotiations.
Right.
He's not an expensive player and he's valuable. Dollars per WAR, that's what front offices look at.
Yeah.
To save their money. And so that's going to be plug and play for him. He could even play shortstop for another team if they absolutely need it. And heck, probably even third base. He's very athletic. So I could see him making that change if he needed to.
Yeah.
So I think I think Hoerner is the one that's easily movable. The other one we talked about was Busch. And that's just if any of these free agents sort of fall into the Cubs' lap. I don't think they're going to be aggressive because they're just not aggressive. But if something falls into their lap, I could see Busch getting traded or Hoerner getting traded and them just shuffling the board a little bit. And that's kind of where I think there is movement in this roster. There's going to be upgrades in terms of getting Paredes a full season with the Cubs. If Bellinger plays, if he's healthy, and really upgrading his defense in right field, and then also having PCA in center, that defense helps, and having Suzuki DH so you can stay warm in the dugout during the cold months. I don't know if that's going to affect him playing defense, but it certainly looked like it helped him in the second half of the season last year when he played DH. So he's, the lineup is still good, but there's only a couple spots to really tinker with.
Do you want to read the other notes that you had here for kind of what you were looking to see possibly?
I think I'll just end with maybe we'll close it out here as it's getting late in the Central Time Zone.
Yeah.
And we've touched on basically all this, but I'll just close and say that the Cubs have a good team with good prospects, and they're not in no man's land yet. But you've seen that they DFA'd Brennan Davis, and Matt Mervis is almost a DFA. Canario is borderline in the DFA territory if he doesn't get together. The Cubs have got to capitalize on the trade value of these prospects, figure out where to slot them in and develop them, or package them together and start getting some superstar players like 7-WAR players. That's the next move they really need to make. They can't accumulate a bunch of 2-WAR players. That's not really going to get them into the playoffs or get them past the first round.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Hopefully, we see some movement this offseason and, we, like you said, pick up those, 6-WAR, 7-WAR players that really make a difference. So we'll see.
I hope.
Well, that's all the time we have for today on our podcast. Thank you for joining us here for Brotherly Cubs. hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, or join the conversation with us on Twitter at Brotherly Cubs or Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'm John, and that's my brother Zach, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.
Listen to this crowd.